welcome to lecture number 9, where we will be seeing module number 3 under subject Indirect Taxation. So as we know, module number 3 is nothing but time and value of supply, in which we have to see time of supply, change in the rate of tax in respect of supply of goods or services, place of supply, value of supply, and in this particular module, we have simple problems on time, place, and value of supply. So time of supply, the theory part we had already covered under lecture number 8. So today we will be covering, we'll do a slight revision on time of supply provisions, and we'll see problems on time of supply. So in this module, you have problems on time of supply, place, and value of supply. So we'll see the provisions and simultaneously we'll see the problems along with it. So let us quickly revise time of supply. So what is time of supply? As I told you in my earlier lecture, it is nothing but the time when the liability to pay tax arises on the supplier. So time of supply, you have time of supply of goods as well as time of supply of services is different. So under time of supply of goods, you have it under forward charge where the supplier is liable to pay. Then you have under reverse charge where the recipient is liable to pay. Vouchers exchangeable for goods in case of residual cases and addition in value. Similarly, time of supply for services, you have under forward charge, under reverse charge, vouchers exchangeable for goods, residual cases, and addition in value. So what is the difference between time of supply of goods and services is only in case of under forward charge and reverse charge, both the time of supply for goods and services are different. But in case of vouchers, residual cases, and addition in value, the time of supply provisions are almost same for the point number C, D, and E. So there is only difference in under forward charge and under reverse charge. So let us just quickly revise the provisions. So we know that time of supply of goods is covered under section 12. Section 12 subsection 1 says that the liability to pay tax on goods shall arise at the time of supply. So what is the time of supply in case of forward charge in respect of goods? It is earlier of 2 dates. Now which 2 dates have you to consider is the date of issue of invoice by the supplier or the last date on which the invoice ought to have been issued under section 31. So in the last class we had seen section 31, that what is the last date to issue the invoice in respect of goods or date of payment of receipt with respect to the supply, whichever is earlier. Now, time of supply under reverse charge is earlier of these 3 dates, that is date on which the goods are received, or date on which the payment is recorded in the books of accounts, or date after 30 days. So when I say after 30 days, that means the 31st day from the issue of invoice by the supplier. So if you're not able to identify these 3 dates or ascertain these 3 dates, the time of supply will be the date of entry of goods in the books of accounts of recipient of goods. Next, time of supply of vouchers by the supplier. Suppose if the supply is identifiable at the point, date of issue of voucher, or in all other cases, date of redemption of voucher. Now, if it is not possible to determine the time of supply under section 2, 3, 4, that is under forward charge, under reverse charge, and under vouchers, then you have to apply section 12 subsection 5, which says that in case where a periodical return is filed, date on which such return is filed, and in all other cases the date on which tax is to be paid. Now next, section 12 subsection 6 tells us that what in case of addition in value. Now what do you mean by addition in value? That is, when any interest, penalty, late fee is being collected for delayed payment of the consideration, that extra which is collected over and above the consideration is the addition in value, and the time of supply in case of addition in value will be the date on which the supplier receives such addition in value. So we have completed the revision of time of supply of goods. Now let us see the section number 31, where it is applicable in case of forward charge, that date of issue of invoice or date on which the invoice ought to be issued. So what is that date as per section 31? So it is before or at the time, the invoice has to be issued before or at the time of removal of goods. When the goods are being removed, which if there is a movement of goods, and suppose if there is no movement of goods, then make the date on which you're delivering the goods will be the date on which you are supposed to issue tax invoice. Next, let us see
Ma'am,
time of
some
supply of services section. Yes, student?
Ma'am, some students are waiting outside.
Okay. Okay, let us move ahead. Time supply of services, where we have seen that again section, it is covered under section 13. So under forward charge, what is the time of supply of services is first thing you need to check whether the invoice is issued within the prescribed time. Now prescribed time is mentioned under section 31. So suppose if you have identified yes, the invoice is issued within the prescribed time, then the date of time of supply will be the date of issue of invoice or the date of receipt of payment, whichever is earlier. Then you realize that the invoice is not issued within the prescribed time that is specified under section 31. Then what will be the time of supply? Date of provision of service. Now provision of service is the date when you are providing the actual service to the client or the customer, or date of receipt of payment, whichever is earlier. And suppose these two provisions are not, you're not able to identify those dates, then the time of supply will be the date on which the recipient shows the receipt of services in the books of accounts. Next, time of supply under reverse charge for services, students. So it is two dates you need to check, and whichever is the earlier date, that will be the time of supply in respect of services under reverse charge. So date on which payment is recorded in the books of accounts, or date on which the payment is debited from the bank account, whichever is earlier becomes the date of payment, or date after 60 days from the issue of invoice by the supplier. So students, there is a slight difference under reverse charge, under reverse charge in case of goods, and time of supply under reverse charge in case of services. In case of goods, we see date after 30 days, and in case of services it is date after 60 days, that is the 61st day. Suppose if these events are not ascertainable, then the time of supply will be the date of entry in the books of accounts of recipient of service. Now, in case of time of supply, in case of goods and services, in respect of vouchers is the same. So we have already revised that. Then this also, section 13 subsection 5 is exactly same as section 12 subsection 5. So we have revised this. Section 12 subsection 6 is exactly same as section 13 subsection 6. So we have finished revising this. Now let us see the section number 31 in respect of services. So a registered person supplying taxable services shall issue tax invoice before or after the provision of service within the prescribed time. Now, what is this prescribed time? In case of taxable supply of services, 30 days from the supply of service. That means if a person is providing services, he has to issue the tax invoice within 30 days of providing the services. So if he's providing the services on 1st of May, after 30 days, that is 1st of April, 31st May, he's supposed to issue the tax invoice. Then in case of insurer, banking, financial, non-banking financial institution, 45 days limit is given. And in case of supply between distinct person, it is before the supplier records such supply in the books of his accounts, or at the expiry of the quarter in which the supply is made. So after revising all these provisions, let us see the problems on each of the section, including their subsection, that is under forward charge, under reverse charge, under vouchers, under addition in value, so that we practically understand the theory that we have covered. So let us look into the problems on time of supply. Okay, students. So we know that in this particular module, we have a simple problems on time of supply, place of supply, and value of supply. So today, basically, we'll just be seeing simple problems on time of supply, because that is the provision that we have already covered. So a machine has to be supplied at site. It is done by sourcing various components from vendors and assembling the machine at site. The details of various events are: so on 17th September, purchase order with advance of 50,000 is received for goods. So when it is goods, students, you need to apply section 12 worth rupees 12 lakhs and entry duly made in the seller's books of accounts. Next, on 20th September, the machine is assembled, tested at site and accepted by the buyer. On 23rd of October, the invoice is being raised. And on 4th of November, the balance payment of 11 lakh 50,000 is being received. Determine the time of supplies in the above scenario for the purpose of payment of tax. So students, first thing, before understanding or solving the problem, first thing you need to know that they are asking you the time of supply. So which section will be applicable? Since it is goods, section number 12 will be applicable. So next thing you need to understand, which subsection will be applicable, whether subsection 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, among that which will be applicable. Since the problem is silent, since the problem doesn't talk about the recipient paying the tax, so we have to consider it under forward charge. So forward charge is covered under section 12 subsection 2. So what does section 12 subsection 2 tells us? That in case of time of supply for goods, the time of supply will be earlier of 2 dates. Now which are those 2 dates? Can any student tell me which are the 2 dates in which you need to see time of supply of goods? Is nothing but the date, this is section 13, date of issue of invoice by the supplier, or the last date on which invoice ought to have been issued by supplier under section 31, or date of receipt of payment. Now we just need to check the date of issue of invoice or date of receipt of payment. Compare these 2 dates. Whichever is the earlier date, it will be the time of supply. So moving ahead to our problem, we just solve it. A registered person excluding composition supplier has to pay GST on outward supply of goods at the time of supply as specified in section 12 subsection 2 clause A, which we have just seen, that is date of issue of invoice or the last date on which the invoice ought to have been issued in terms of section 31. Therefore, the time of supply of goods for the entire 12 lakh is 20th September, which is the date on which the goods were made available to the recipient as per section 31 subsection 1 clause B, and the invoice ought to have been issued on this date. So student, just let me explain you this. What does section 12 subsection 2 tell you? That the time of supply in respect of goods should be the date of issue of invoice. Now when the invoice has been issued, it is issued on 23rd October, or the date on which the invoice ought to have been issued. Now as per section 31, the invoice had to be issued within after 30 days at the time of sorry students, the invoice had to be issued at the time of making delivery or making available those goods to the customer as per section 31 subsection 1. So students, on 20th October, the machine is assembled, tested at site and accepted by the buyer. So as per section 31, the invoice had to be issued on 20th October. Reason being, because 20th October is the date on which the invoice ought to have been issued as per section 31. Section 31 tells us that when there is a movement of goods, so at the time of removal of goods, or where there is no movement of goods, at the time of making delivery of the goods, the invoice has to be issued. So the invoice had to be issued on 20th October. Second, you need to check the date of payment. The date of payment is 4th November. So which is the earlier date, 20th October or 4th November? It is 20th October. Therefore, 20th October is the time of supply in respect of goods. So is problem number 1 clear, students? Yes, students? Did everyone understand problem number 1? Problem number 1, we are seeing under which section? Section number 12, subsection 2, which tells us check the two dates: date of issue of invoice or the last date on which invoice ought to have been issued under section 31. So in our particular problem, the last date to issue the invoice was 20th October. So 20th October or date of receipt of payment, which is 4th November, whichever is earlier. So 20th October is earlier. Therefore, 20th October is our time of supply in respect of goods. So is problem number 1 clear, students? Yes, students? Students, am I audible to you all? Can you hear me? Or do I need to re-explain this problem?
Ma'am, please explain once.
Okay. See, 17th September the order was placed. 20th October the machine is assembled. That is, the machine has been delivered, okay, and accepted by the buyer. 20th October the vendor had issued the invoice, and 4th November the payment was being received. Okay. Now we know that since it is goods, okay, so the time of supply in respect of goods under section 12 subsection 2, since it is a forward charge, because here you can't see any recipient paying tax, you cannot see a voucher in this case, you cannot see addition in value in this case. So which provision will you apply? Section 12 subsection 2. Okay, so first you need to know the section. So this section tells us that the supplier is supposed to pay, supposed to issue the invoice. Sorry, the supplier is the time of supply in respect of goods under forward charge will be the earlier of 2 dates. So date of issue of invoice or date of receipt of payment, whichever is earlier. Now, date of issue of invoice, you need to check the actual date when the supplier has issued the invoice or the date on which these ought to have been issued. Actually, he had to issue under section 31. And section 31, we have seen in respect of goods, students, that before or at the time of removal of goods or delivery of goods. Okay, so moving back to the problem, here the actual date of invoice that has been issued by the supplier is 23rd October. Okay, and the date on which actually the invoice had to be issued is the date in which the goods are delivered to the buyer. So the machine is assembled, tested at site, and accepted by the buyer. That means it has been installed in the buyer's site, so it is delivered to the buyer on 20th October. Okay, or date of payment, which is 4th November. Now, first among date of issue of invoice or the date ought to be issued under section 31, let us compare this. So among these two, which is the earlier date, it is actually the invoice had to be issued on 20th October. So 20th October being the date of issue of invoice or date of payment, receipt of payment. So payment has been received, that is on 4th November. Now among 20th November and 4th November, which is a date which falls earlier, it is 20th November. Therefore 20th November is the date that on which it will determine the time of supply. So 20th November is the time of supply in respect of this particular transaction. Now is it clear, students?
Yes, ma'am.
First,
Yes, ma'am.
First foremost, if any problem is given, students, I'll just tell you all the steps in which you need to solve. So first foremost, just check whether it is goods, the problem is for goods or for services. So once you determine if it is for goods or services, check under which subsection, whether it is under forward charge, reverse charge, whether it is for vouchers, whether it is for addition in value, check for that. Next thing you'll need to check is, suppose if it is for forward charge, which are the two dates that you need to compare, date of issue of invoice or date of receipt of payment. After you determine which are the dates to be compared, just pay attention on those dates and ignore the others. So once you are making your mind towards those dates, see the earlier of the dates and then you will come to the correct solution or conclusion. Is it clear, students?
Yes, ma'am.
Students? Okay. Now let us see problem number 2. Okay. Determine the time of supply for the given information. Now, May 4, the supplier invoices the taxable goods on reverse charge basis to Bridge and Company. 30 days from the date of issue of invoice will lapse on June 3rd. Now, May 12, Bridge and Company receives the good, and May 30, Bridge and Company makes the payment. Okay, so first thing what I told you all to analyze is whether it is for goods or services. So we have to determine time of supply for goods. Okay, next you need to see whether it is falling under which subsection. So it is falling under subsection 3, that is applicable for reverse charge. The next thing I told you all that which are the dates that you need to compare, only concentrate on that dates, and whichever is earlier of those dates, that will be your answer. So which are the 3 dates that you'll need to consider in case of reverse charge? The date on which you're receiving the goods, the date on which the payment is being made, and the date immediately following 30 days of the issue of invoice. See students, under reverse charge for goods, the 3 dates, among that one date is date immediately following 30 days from the issue of invoice. So just let me show you the provision. See, time of supply under reverse charge for goods is 3 dates you need to check. Date on which goods are received, date on which payment is being recorded, and date after 30 days from the issue of invoice by the supplier. So date after 30 days. So these 3 dates you need to compare. Now whichever is earlier will be the time of supply. So moving back to the problem, among these 3 dates, which is the earlier date, students? This will not be May 4 because this is a date when the invoice has been issued, but we have to see date immediately following 30 days after the issue of invoice. So after 30 days, it will 30 days lapse on June 4, means 31st day. So June 3rd, the 30 days lapse means June 4. So you need to compare 3 dates: June 4, May 12, May 30. So students, can you all tell me what is the time of supply for this? You'll need to compare 3 dates: May 12, May 30, and June 4. So among these 3 dates, which is the date that is falling earlier?
May
May
12.
12.
So May 12 is your time of supply. So let us see the answer. Here May 12 will be the time of supply, being the earliest of 3 stipulated dates, namely the receipt of goods, the date on receipt of goods, that is May 12, date on which the payment is received, that is May 30, or date immediately following 30 days of the issuance of invoice. Now the 30 days will lapse on June 3. So after 30 days, so 31st day, that is June 4. And that is as per section 12 subsection 3. Your date of invoice is relevant only for calculating 30 days from that date. So May 4 is relevant only to calculate when your 30 days will complete and to know the 31st date. So is problem number 2 clear, students?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Let us move ahead to problem number 3. Determine the time of supply from the following information. May 4, supplier invoices goods taxable on reverse charge basis to Pillar and Company, and 30 days from the date of issuance of invoice will lapse on June 3rd. So students, First, we'll just read the entire problem, then I'll explain. June 12 is Pillar and Company receives the goods, and July 3 payment made for the goods. Now, first and foremost, you need to understand whether you have to see time of supply for goods or services. So in this case, we have to identify the time of supply for goods. So that is covered under section 12. Now, it is clearly given under reverse charge basis. So section 12 subsection 3. Now, under section 12 subsection 3, which are the three dates that you need to compare? Number one, that is date on which the goods are received, that is June 12. Date on which the payment has been received, that is July 3, or date following, immediately following 30 days from the date of issue of invoice. Now the invoice has been issued on 4th. Now 30 days from the date of issuance of invoice is lapsing on June 3. Therefore, 31st day will be June 4. So you have to compare June 4, June 12, and July 3rd July. So which is the earlier dates among these three dates, students?
June 4.
June 4. So what will be your answer? Here, June 4 being the 31st day from the date of supplier's invoice will be the time of supply, being the earlier of three stipulated dates, namely receipt of goods, date of payment, and date immediately following 30 days of the issue of invoice. This is as per section 12 subsection 3. So students, when you present your answer, you can either present by mentioning the section. First, describe the provision, that is as per section 12 subsection 3. It is time of supply in respect of goods on reverse charge basis, and in this particular provision the time of supply will be earlier of 3 dates, and you can mention the 3 dates, and then you can specify the answer. The presentation is totally up to you all. Okay, is problem number 3 clear, students?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, let us move ahead to problem number 4. Carvers Limited sells food coupons to a company which gives this to its employees as a part of their agreed perquisites. The coupons can be redeemed for purchase of any item of food or provision in the outlets that are a part of the program. What is the time of supply? Now, students, first thing what I told you all to identify is whether it is a time of supply for goods or services. Now, it is food involved, correct? So, it is for goods. Second thing, whether it is falling under forward charge, reverse charge, vouchers exchangeable for goods, or addition in value. So under which section it is falling? It is falling under section 12 subsection 4, because it is vouchers. Coupons are nothing but vouchers. So vouchers exchangeable for goods. Okay, now when these coupons are given, the company doesn't know what will the employees opt for. Either it can opt for any item, purchase of any item is given, students. So at the time of issuing the vouchers or coupons, the company is not aware what can the employee redeem against that particular coupon. So students, what is the time of supply in respect of vouchers? If it is identifiable, then the date of issue of vouchers. If the supply is not identifiable at the time of issuing the coupons, it will be the date on which the employee redeems that particular coupon. So are you all remembering the provision? Let us go back to the provision just to show you all that we have covered it. Supply of vouchers by supplier. What is the time of supply? If the supply is identifiable at that point, if the company knows that the employee is going to take this a particular item, then it is going to be the date of issue of voucher. Or if the company is not aware, in all other cases is going to be the date of redemption of voucher. So students, can you all tell me in this particular case whether the time of supply is the date of issue of coupon, or whether the time of supply is the date on which the employee redeems the coupon? Yes, students.
Ma'am, since it is not identical at the time of redeem of supply, ma'am.
So what will be the time of supply?
The date on the redemption of the supply, ma'am.
Very good. So let us see the answer. As the supply against which the coupon will be redeemed is not known on the date of sale of the coupon, therefore the time of supply of the coupon will be the date on which the employee redeems it against the food or provision items of his choice. So did everyone understand problem number 4?
Yes, ma'am.
If the same problem was for services also, the answer would remain the same, because we have seen time of supply of goods and services. In case of coupons, it is, in case of vouchers, it is the same. So did everyone understand problem number 4?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Now next, let us move to problem number 5. With each purchase of a large pizza during the Christmas week from Perfect Pizza, one can buy a voucher of rupees 20 which will be redeemed till 5th Jan for a small pizza. What is the time of supply? Now students, here what is happening? If you purchase a large pizza during the Christmas week, you will get a voucher, and that voucher you can redeem only against small pizza. So can you all, before I giving the solution, can you all tell me
Ma'am, it is
what
identical.
should be the solution? Since the
Identifiable.
supply is identifiable at the point of issue of that voucher, means Perfect Pizzas knows that if I'm giving this voucher, the customer will redeem only small pizza against that voucher. It is known, it is identifiable. Therefore, what is going to be the time of supply? When it is identifiable, what is the time of supply? It is
Date of the
the
issue
date
of.
of issue. Very good. So it is going to be the date of issue of voucher. So let us see. As the supply against which the voucher will be redeemed is known on the date of sale, the time of supply is the date of issue of voucher. You can write as per section 12, subsection 4. Next. Is problem number 5 clear to everyone?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, students? Okay. Let us move ahead to problem number 6. Radha traders sold goods to Sham sales on 6th June with the condition that interest at the rate of 2% per month will be charged if Sham sales failed to make the payment within 15 days of the delivery of goods. Now, goods were delivered as also the invoice was issued on the 6th June. Now, Sham Sales paid the consideration for the goods on 6th July along with the applicable interest. So let me first explain this problem. In this problem, what is happening? The goods were sold on 6th June, the goods were delivered, and the invoice also was issued on 6th June. And Sham made the payment, complete payment, including the interest payment on 6th of July. Okay. So let us determine the time of supply. Students, what did I tell you? In respect of the consideration, you are going to apply section 12, subsection 3, that is under forward charge. And in respect of addition in value, there is a different section for that. So now tell me, under forward charge, what are the two dates that you need to compare? The two dates you need to compare is the date of issue of invoice, or the date on which the invoice ought to have been issued, or the date of receipt of payment, whichever is earlier. So students, date of issue of invoice is 6th June. Now what is the date on which the invoice ought to have been issued on as per section 31? It is, if the goods were delivered, the date on which the goods are delivered, so that is again 6th June. So you have to compare 6th June, and second date is date of receipt of payment. So when you're receiving the payment, 6th July. So date of issue of invoice or date of receipt of payment, whichever is earlier, not for the full, not for the additional consideration, students, for the main consideration I'm talking. So which is the earlier of the two dates? 6th June is earlier or 6th July is earlier? Which is the earlier of two dates? Yes, students.
Ma'am, 6th June.
Yes, among 6th June and 6th July, which
6th
is
June.
earlier, students? Quick. Correct. So time of supply for the goods sold is the date of issue of invoice, that is the 6th June. Okay. So one part of the problem we have solved. Second is we need to know for addition in value. For addition in value, that is interest what he's collecting at the rate of 2% per month, which he failed to pay within 15 days. So that interest portion, students, what will be the time of supply for interest portion? Will it be 6th June on which the date of invoice is been issued, or the date on which actually the addition of amount is received? What is going to be the time of supply in case of addition in value? It is going to be the date on which the actual addition in value amount is received. So Sham sales paid the addition for goods on 6th July along with applicable interest. So this addition in value is received on 6th July. So in case of addition in value, the date on which such value is actually received will be the time of supply. Therefore, in respect of addition in value, the time of supply will be 6th July. So in case of supply for addition, in case of time of supply for addition in value by way of interest is the date when such addition in value is received by Radha traders. Therefore, it will be 6th July. So in this problem, you need to have two time of supply. One is for the consideration and one is for the additional consideration. For consideration, you need to see section number 12, subsection 2. So for that consideration, we have seen section number 12, subsection 2 under forward charge. We have seen date of issue of invoice, date of receipt of payment, whichever is earlier. But for addition and consideration, we need to see section 12, subsection 6. That is, time of supply will be date on which the supplier receives such addition in value. So here in this particular problem, we are applying two provisions. Now, is problem number 6 clear, students?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Okay. Now, let us move ahead to problem number 7. Determine the time of supply from the given information. Okay. Okay. Before we going to services, this is in respect of services. Let us quickly revise. Now, since we have already solved the problems as well, you all will be able to remember the provisions as per section 12, subsection 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. So can you all tell me section 12, subsection 2 under forward charge, which are the two dates that we need to compare for goods?
Ma'am, the date of issue of
Under invoice or the date of receipt of payment, whichever is earlier. In case of reverse charge, which are the three dates we need to compare? Date of receipt of goods, date of payment, or 30 days from the date of issue of invoice. Next, in case of vouchers, what is going to be the time of supply? Students, I'm revising again and again because if this revision is frequent, then that particular provision will stay in your mind, in your brains, and it will help you all because there's lots to cover. So when there's final examination, you all will clearly understand which are the provisions, others will get confused. So in case of voucher, students, two things you need to check. What are the two things? Whether the supply is
identifiable, then the date of issue of voucher. If it is not identifiable, then the date on the redeemable of the voucher.
very good. Then in case of addition in value, what is the time of supply? Yes, students. What is the time of supply in case of addition in value? students? Can you hear me? The date of supply will be the date on which such addition in value is actually received by the supplier. We've just seen that problem. Is it clear? Yes, students?
Yes,
Yes, ma'am.
Yes or no? Okay.
yes, ma'am.
Now let us move ahead. Okay. Let us move ahead. I know it will so easily you will not be able to remember the provisions, but I'm just revising for your good. Okay. Now let us move ahead to time of supply of services and let us see the provisions practically. So determine the time of supply from the given information. 6th May. 6th May booking of convention hall happened where some agreed is 15,000 and out of 15,000 advance of 3,000 is being received. Now 15th September the function was held in convention hall. So actually the function services was rendered on 15th September because the function was held. On 27th October, invoice was issued for 15,000 indicating balance of 12,000 payable because out of 15,000, 3,000 advance was already given on 6th of May. On 3rd of November, balance payment of 12,000 was received. Now, as per time of supply for services, this is under forest. There is no information against reverse charges given. It is not related to vouchers, not related to addition in value. Therefore, the provision that we are going to apply is as per section 13 subsection 2. Okay. Now, what does section 13 subsection 2 tells us, students? That in respect of services, the time of supply, you need to first check whether the invoice is being issued within the prescribed time. If it is issued within the prescribed time, it will be the date of issue of invoice or the date of receipt of payment, whichever is earlier. So let us check whether the invoice is issued within the prescribed time. When is the invoice issued? It is issued on 27th October. Now, what is the prescribed time? Prescribed time is nothing but 30 days from the date of provision of service the invoice had to be issued. Now, when is the service provided? Service is provided on 15th September. So when the invoice had to ought to be issued as per section 31, it had to be issued within 30 days from the supply of service or provision of service. Now that is 15th September means 15th October the invoice had to be issued. Now tell me, students, is the invoice issued within the prescribed time? Actual invoice is issued on 27th October. Invoice ought to be issued as per section 31 is 30 days from the date of provision of service. So provision of service is on 15th September. 30 days from that will be 15th October. So tell me, students, is the invoice issued as per the prescribed time? Yes or no?
No, ma'am.
Yes, students. Invoice had to be issued on 15th.
Yes, ma'am.
No. So if it is no, that means we need to see which provision. We need to see section 13 subsection 2 clause B, which says that if the invoice is not issued within the prescribed time, then the time of supply will be the date of provision of service or the date of receipt of payment, whichever is earlier. I will take you back to that provision, but this is just for information that if the invoice is not issued within the prescribed time, it will be the date of provision of service or date of receipt of payment, whichever is earlier. Now, students, from this 15,000, 3,000 is received on 6th May. So in respect of 3,000, what is the time of supply? You have to compare the date of provision of service, that is 15 September, or the date of receipt of payment of these 3,000, whichever is earlier. Which is earlier? 6th May. So in respect of 3,000 rupees, the time of supply is 6th May. And for the balance 12,000 rupees, what is going to be the time of supply? So you have to compare date of provision of service or date of receipt of payment, whichever is earlier. Which is earlier? 15th September is earlier or 3rd November is earlier? Which is earlier, students?
September.
15th
15th September.
September is earlier. Therefore, for 3,000 rupees, 6th May is the time of supply, and for 12,000 rupees, 15th September is the time of supply. So let us just read the solution. Then I'll take you back to the provision. As per section 31 subsection 2, the tax invoice is to be issued within 30 days from the supply of service. So the section 31, is the time limit of issuing the tax invoice. Now, in the given case, the invoice is not issued within the prescribed time limit. Therefore, as per section 13 subsection 2 clause B, in case where the invoice is not issued within the prescribed time, the time of supply of service is the date of provision of service or the receipt of payment, whichever is earlier. Now, therefore, the time of supply of service to the extent of 3,000 is 6th May, as the date of payment of 3,000 is earlier than the date of provision of service. And the time of supply of service to the extent of the balance 12,000 is 15th September, which is the date of provision of service. So now let me take you back to the. So here what we have seen, students, time of supply of services, section 12 subsection 2 clause A, B, C. So first what they are telling is, if the invoice is issued within the prescribed time. So as per section 31, what is going to be the time of supply? Date of receipt of payment or date of issue of invoice, whichever is earlier. Now what is prescribed time? We have seen prescribed time in respect of normal supplier, it is 30 days from the date of provision of service. In case of banks, non-banking financial institution, it is 45 days from the date of provision of service. Now in that particular problem, since it is not issued within the prescribed time, we will not apply this particular subsection. Which subsection will apply? Since the invoice is not issued within the prescribed time, the time of supply will be the date of provision of service or the date of receipt of payment, whichever is earlier. That is the reason we have applied section 12 subsection 2 clause B. This is clause A, this is clause B. Now students, have you all understood? Have you all understood problem number 7?
Yes, ma'am.
Everyone? Yes, students?
Yes, ma'am.
Ma'am.
Okay. Okay. So we will conclude for today, since we have only 5 minutes left in which we cannot complete problem number 8. So we will conclude for today. Thank you so much, students.